Panthers beat reporter Shayna Quick from Fox Radio 1340 joins the show. We got to talk Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, even Anthony Richardson.
And to tie it all in, we want to develop a great team here that we can deliver wins to the city of Houston. We want to deliver a championship here to the city of Houston, and that's what it'll be about.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to a Saturday episode of the Locked On Texan podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. If you've ever dreamed of becoming your own version of Nick Caserio, NFL General Manager, and managing your own football franchise, this game is for you. Download the game. You can visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. Our listeners get a 100% free boost up to 100% when you use promo code Locked On in all caps in the game store. Make sure you are subscribed to the Locked On Texan podcast on YouTube and wherever you get your major podcasting platforms as well. Excuse me. I'm sorry, guys. I'm John, some sports guy Hickman. Of course, I'm joined by none other than Cody Davis, beat reporter for the Houston Rockets, Houston Texans, and Sports Illustrated's own. We got Shayna Quick joining the show. And was it last season or the year before last we had Miss Quick on?
Every year, it's like I told her, every year it seemed like, John, you always got that one family member that, you just talk to at least once, maybe 2 times a year. Just say, hey, how you doing? Hope all is well. Love you. Bye. I feel like that's what our relationship with Sheena is as of right now, because every offseason, the Texans and the Panthers find some type of way to get connected to one another.
Man. So Shayna Quick will be joining the show coming up, but we have to play around with the idea. And, of course, we'll get into the YouTube comments for this weekend show. But Davis Mills still has number 10. It did not go to Robert Woods, by the way. Davis Mills still has his jersey number. And Desmond King went to 0.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, whatever. But the possibility of Will Anderson of CJ Stroud not coming to Houston, Will Anderson being selected with the number 2 overall pick. And if somehow, some way CJ Stroud falls all the way to 12, fall all the way to 12, then there is a possibility that Houston addresses the quarterback position later in the draft. That has been confirmed. Whether it's at 2 does not matter. Houston will come out of this draft with a rookie quarterback. But we look at the possibility of Davis Mills getting an opportunity to start some games. I'm not going to say the entire year, but starting some games for the Houston Texans this year. Cody, Case Keenum is on the roster, EJ Perry, Davis Mills, who has been with this franchise for the past 2 seasons, going on 3 for his junior year. Isn't that a bad look? Like if Davis Mills came back for another year, or do we have to look at it like this? This is year 3 for Nick Caserio, which is why it makes sense. The rumors of him trying to get up out of here soon. This is year 1 for DeMeco Ryans. And DeMeco Ryans could look at the quarterback position and say, I want my quarterback to step into a position where the rest of the team is put together.
I don't care if you are in year 3 like Nick Caserio. I don't care if you are in your first year as a head coach in DeMeco Ryans. All you have to do is go back and evaluate Davis Mills for the 15 games he played as a starting quarterback for the Houston Texans. And it doesn't matter about how much experience you have. Davis Mills showcased that he could not and cannot be your starting quarterback for the upcoming 2023 campaign. And that's no disrespect to Davis Mills, but he had his opportunity. John, you remember this time last year, I'm not going to say you, but myself and a couple fans, and we also had some media members, we was all for Davis Mills. Give him an opportunity to showcase what he can do as a starting quarterback. And halfway through the season, Lovie Smith had to pull him and replace him for Kyle Allen. That should let you know right there that Davis Mills should not be in this equation. And the fact that we are sitting here talking about the possibility of Davis Mills starting, even if it is for the first couple of games of the upcoming season. That is going to be a bad look, especially considering that whether it's CJ or Bryce or vice versa, however this turned out, you have an opportunity to get a potential franchise quarterback. And I know some people in the comments been arguing amongst each other saying, CJ isn't a franchise quarterback, Bryce Young isn't a franchise quarterback. At the end of the day, I think we could all agree that the ceiling for both Bryce Young and CJ are extremely higher than the ceiling for Davis Mills. Once again, that's no disrespect.
I think the floor for both of those guys is higher than the ceiling for Davis Mills. I'm being honest.
Yeah, and that's no disrespect. That's just the reality of the situation. And however you want to look at this, at the end of the day, we can all agree that CJ and Bryce is a better quarterback than Davis Mills. So, look, as of right now, like I mentioned, John, I said this a couple days ago, and we talked about, just looking at the Houston Texans quarterback room. As of right now, I don't even, no disrespect to EJ, but I don't even want to conclude him in with the possibility of competing as the starting quarterback for the Houston Texans. Case Keenum, he already just been held as a veteran for that position group. And I understand that the Houston Texans, as you just alluded to, they are going to come out of this year's draft with a rookie quarterback. However, John, if it isn't Bryce, if it isn't CJ, hell, I even throw Anthony Richardson in this equation just for the sake of the argument. If it's not one of those three quarterbacks, and of course, I will definitely prefer the other two, I think this will be a total waste of time and a total failure for the Houston Texans.
Yeah, man, and I eventually I want to play around with the idea of Houston taking Will Anderson at 2, and then using that number 12th overall pick, and maybe the
33rd,
not 33rd, one of the first round picks for next year to trade back into the 10th round, the top 10 of the draft, the first round, top 10, and maybe going after if you are that heavy on Will Anderson. I think that, to me, it sounds like you are not banking on your quarterback to be a day one guy. So if that is the case, bringing in Case Keenum, Bobby Slowick, Shane Day, Bill Lazor, if you are going that route, then trading up to the top 10, into the top 10 to go get Anthony Richardson, as much as I think he is a very raw prospect, I would be okay with that. And if that means that you really believe in Anthony Richardson, and again, this is coming from, this idea is stemming from a new head coach who was under a head coach in San Fran who did the same thing to go get Trey Lance. Hadn't panned out for San Fran just as of yet. But if that is your way of thinking, and you believe that Will Anderson is your guy, which means that you are going to risk your quarterback position on a quarterback that could be a rookie that may not be ready for day one, then by all means go trade up for Anthony Richardson. And if that's the case, once again, Davis Mills and Case Keenum can battle it out as a veteran who will start for the first couple of weeks of the season, may start for half of the season, who knows? This is not a team that should risk on higher ceiling quarterbacks. And I like Hendon Hooker. I really do. I really like Hendon Hooker. And I can't wait to talk about Hendon Hooker because I think that he does have some Deshaun Watson in him. I do.
Whoa.
Whoa.
You got too much dip on your chip there.
That is a conversation that when I watch film from his play style, and I know the type of offense he played is going to get brought up, but when I watch film, I do see some Deshaun. For this team, though, if you are going to bank on another year of Davis Mills and Case Keenum, this is the time to use that optionality, that flexibility, whatever you want to describe it as, to trade back up into the 10th round, into the top 10 to go get Anthony Richardson, because I believe that you have more of an opportunity to get AR-15 compared to letting CJ pass by you at 2. So that's my thought about it. And Davis Mills could be a quarterback that, better circumstances, I think he would be in much better circumstances and coaching.
Most definitely.
He may be able to, keep Anthony Richardson as an idea, keep Anthony Richardson on the sideline. Because I got a question for you. Let's say in 23 years, we got a guy by the name of Jair Hickman coming out. Would you draft him? don't even know why I set it up like that. I don't want my son to play football. I want to play basketball. But
Congrats, bro!
yeah, man.
Oh my god!
Here we go. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. You've heard us talk about the game here on the show a lot. And this is the perfect time for you to right the wrongs of your favorite franchise. You can be a better version of Nick Caserio. When you play Ultimate Football, you get an opportunity to control and manage every strategic aspect of your team as you play through seasons and lead your team to glory, trying to build a dynasty. You hire the right coaches and coordinators. You manage all of the finances, including negotiating player contracts, salaries, and terms, navigating your franchise through free agency, the draft, injuries, player personnel issues, and all of the ups and downs of a season. All of this on a challenging and realistic game world. And Ultimate Football GM is completely free, playable offline. Our Locked On Texan listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using promo code Locked On in the game store. That's Locked On in all caps in the game store. So make sure you check it out today. Download the game either at ultimate-gm.com so you can play on your desktop, or if you want to keep it mobile on your phone, look it up in the App Store.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Saturday installment of Locked On Texans. And as promised, we have our sister, Miss Sheena Quick, Panthers beat reporter for Fox Sports 1340. Sheena, how you doing? And welcome back to Locked On Texans.
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. You know, at first we thought that this was going to be an easy draft to cover here in the city of Houston, but unfortunately, it seems like there's some drama that's about to start. Before we get into it, I do want to say this. You know, you always have that one family member that you only talk to them once, maybe 2 times a year just to check on them and stuff. I kind of feel like this is us at this point. I kind of feel because every off season, the Panthers and the Texans find themselves in some type of storyline.
They find a way to mingle, right? They find a way to mingle. They find a way to do-si-do, and here we are.
Here we are again. And Sheena, let's jump right into it. CJ, Bryce, from what you have been told, from what you have been seeing, what has been the Panthers' evaluation between both of those quarterbacks? And of course, the one question a lot of Texans fans would like to know, is Bryce Young a lock for the #1 overall pick for the Carolina Panthers?
It depends on who you're talking to and what time of the day you're talking to them. I think that the pendulum has just continued to swing between those two guys for the last couple of weeks. We're now, 13 days away? So I feel like in the next 3 to 4 days or so, the Panthers will be finalizing that decision. They took a lot of people with them to these pro days to evaluate these guys. They're just making sure that this is as thorough of a pick as they possibly can get, because they don't have a first round pick next season. They don't like this is gotta, you gotta make something shake. You know, Adam Thielen came over here this is his swan song. The Panthers are building a roster right now. So that's why it's been of the utmost importance. And just speaking of all the things that they gave up to get to one of the picks, DJ Moore, to get to that #1 spot, they want to make sure that they do all of their due diligence. I don't think they were locked in on one particular guy when they made the move. I think that they've always had their eyes on those two, and they knew that if they did not get to one, Bryce Young, it's a high likelihood that Bryce Young and CJ Stroud would both be gone. But y'all over there messing up that theory now. Well, I mean, y'all are jacking that theory all the way up, because you might not even take a quarterback.
I know, but please don't break that up right now. We're just trying to hold our hope. And down here in the city of Houston, it does seem like, you know, in terms of whether or not the Houston Texans take a quarterback, at least between those two guys, it seemed like it's more so Bryce or bust at this point. And one of the things that we have been told is the fact that this S2 test that I never really paid attention to until this year, Bryce did extremely well on it. CJ did not do some good, and that kind of like deterred the Texans away from CJ. Are you hearing that, whether or not the Panthers are utilizing that S2 test as to say this is why we're favoring Young over CJ, or possibly vice versa?
Well, per my source, who is going to have a heavy hand in making that decision, he's not
Mhm.
basing it just off the S2. The S2 is just one part of the evaluation. You got to look at the interviews, whiteboard, and the
Mhm.
film. Now, if those two things are vastly different, like, okay, he's making these reads, he's processing very, very well in game time situations, which is really what matters. Like, nobody's in the throes of a game and they're like, oh, shoot, we're down 3 points. We got to figure out what play we're going to call. Is down to the 2-minute warning. We're on the 40-yard line. What was his S2 score? No, we're trying to figure out if you're going to make the right decision with the ball. So I don't know if, again, these are two very, very, very closely evaluated prospects, and any little small thing can swing that pendulum one way to the other, but they're not relying. That's not what's going to get CJ Stroud just off their minds. That's not the
Mhm.
disqualifying factor from what I've been told, what I was told yesterday afternoon. And again, this is a very good source who will definitely be part of this decision. I'm not going to reveal the sources. This is a source that's going to be a huge part of this decision in 13 days. And he said, look, it's only a portion of my evaluation. They've seen these guys at the combine, they saw these guys at
Mhm.
pro days, they've seen these guys top 30 visits, but it's not a surprise that Bryce Young knocked that out of the park. I mean,
Yeah.
we've known for 2 years they have been mocking Bryce Young as number one. Like, the first time that there was any type of discrepancy or any suggestion that he wouldn't be taken at one because of his size and weight, his height and weight, was
Mhm.
like in the last month or so. That's when it became a big deal to people. Again, like I tell Panthers fans, I'm like, listen, now y'all get in this space and talk real greasy about Bryce Young. Y'all are sending these memes about, I mean, y'all basically making it seem like, he's Tiny Tim, if you will. But y'all are the same people that were telling the Panthers to tank last year, and y'all were definitely editing that black and blue on Bryce Young. So I remember everything. You
Hmm.
know how I am with my receipts. You can just call me CVS of the Carolinas. Like, I'm keeping long
Hmm.
receipts. And I'm like, some of y'all were y'all were tweeting that edit of Bryce Young in that Panthers uniform, and now y'all are singing a different tune now with these S2 scores that all of a sudden fans are S2, professionals and analytics majors. Everybody's like, oh my God, CJ Stroud, that's going to put him out of there. He's just out of the running. He is not QB2. I wouldn't say all of that. I do think in these next couple of days, the Panthers are going to finalize that decision. And I even asked, I said, look, it's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. How are y'all doing this? Are y'all doing a vote? Are y'all like, how are y'all? But that's a valid question,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, it is.
That's a
And
valid question. So
the
I've
one
been told
thing,
that
no, go ahead.
basically kind of circles that are going to slowly, slowly, slowly trickle down to 2 to 3 people that are going to make the final decision. But no A or nay votes or anything like that. Because I needed to know. I wanted to know how this was going down. It was a lot of them. It's like 12 or 13 people. Needed to
So
know.
so you telling the Texans fans that's watching Locked On Texans that it's still a chance that Bryce Young could still fall to number 2, even if it's a small. They just looking for a small little bit of hope.
Listen, Texans, I mean, if y'all really, really want to ensure that you get Bryce Young, you might want to get on the phone and try to give up what you got to give up to get to one. I ain't one to gossip, so you ain't heard it from me.
Mm.
I'm saying, I'm just saying, if you're that convicted and you want BY and you feel like he's not going to be there too, despite all, I mean, y'all like Alabama, you want to go Bryce Young or was it Will Anderson, right?
Mhm.
Those are the two people you guys like in H-Town. I'm just saying, get on the phone. I'm just saying, but I feel like you're gonna have to give up your 12.
Hey, yeah,
Y'all willing to give up are y'all willing to give up 2 and 12?
I don't know about due to the Deshaun Watson, the Texans still have some future, first round picks. I think next year they still have 2. So what about number 2 and the Browns pick, or probably the Texans' own pick? Like, come on, you just said the Panthers don't have a first round pick next year, so I wouldn't give up
They
12. I
don't.
wouldn't give up 12, but one of those picks that we got from the Deshaun Watson trade. I mean, hey, there you go. So with that being
You
said,
give
of
up
course.
2 and 12. I don't think Panthers fans would be opposed to CJ Stroud at 2 and then his buddy Jackson
Oh man, that's what we
at
thought we was getting
12,
here.
trying to get a Cincinnati, Burrow Chase type of situation going on here, but who knows?
Sheeta,
I
of
feel like the
course.
Texans are going to Texan.
Please don't say that. That's what we are scared of. A lot of people, including myself, for the longest I kept saying there's no way they could mess this up. And then here we are 2 weeks out and it's getting scarier and scarier. But there's a lot of talks about CJ's, a lot of talks about Bryce. But Sheena, is there any chance? What has been the Panthers' evaluation about Anthony Richardson? This is a guy, as you know. He has jumped up the draft board over the last couple of weeks since the NFL Combine, and he's been compared to
I
a
told
guy.
y'all that was gonna happen.
Yes, you did. And
I said, listen, after this Combine, he's going to shoot up everybody's draft board, and everybody told me I was absolutely insane.
No, you was right.
Have enough start.
So, what's the Panthers' evaluation about Richardson? Is there a chance they could shock the world and take Anthony?
At this point, I don't. They could shock the world. I don't think Anthony Richardson is just a no way, no how. He honestly fits the prototypical Frank Reich quarterback, if you will. It's just that, like I said, I think they are trying to build this roster to win right now. Definitely a Lamborghini in Anthony Richardson. And I'm not saying Bryce Young or CJ Stroud are Pintos of any sort. They're still luxury vehicles, but they're the luxury vehicles that the insurance company isn't going to charge you an insane premium on that they would charge you if you were driving that Lamborghini. And I think that's kind of the best way to put it. His ceiling, he has the highest ceiling, but we don't know what his floor is. You don't know what his floor is. You don't know what the ceiling is. You don't know the time that it's going to take to get to that ceiling. We've seen CJ Stroud with a competent coaching staff. You've seen Bryce Young with Nick Saban, but has Anthony Richardson really, we haven't seen Anthony Richardson's true potential at UF. It's not like he had, some first round draft picks he was throwing to, he hasn't had a stable core or coaching staff around him, and he doesn't have a lot of starts in Florida. Do I think it would have benefited him to stay in that system one more year? No. I think he came out when he was supposed to. I don't think he would have I don't think he would have helped his stock staying in Gainesville another season just because they can't get things together. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Nole. I'm not saying that because I'm a Seminole. I'm saying this from an NFL perspective, not a college football perspective. And I think that that's what's so intriguing about Anthony Richardson. It's like, dang, if we don't take him and he's out here just killing it in 2 to 3 seasons, are we going to have regrets? I think that even if you have regrets, you can temper those regrets. If you have a Bryce Young or CJ Stroud and you're winning the NFC South like you're supposed to, like if the Panthers make the correct pick at quarterback, they will win the NFC South or should be heavy favorites to win the NFC South for at least the next 2 to 3 seasons. It's the division that's wide open. In the past, you had Matt Ryan, Cam Newton, Drew Brees, Jameis Winston / Tom Brady. Like it was chock full of quarterbacks that could really light it up. And now it's just like, who's going to win? Who's coming to the playoffs? Like, we're going to have to drag y'all kicking and screaming. Somebody come to the playoffs. The Panthers were still in it all the way up until week 17.
Yeah.
Having won 5 or 6 games at that point. So I think that the Panthers want to win now. They brought Adam Thielen to win now. They brought DJ Chark there to win now. They brought Miles Sanders in to win now. They brought Hayden Hurst in to win now. And they've created enough insulation, especially on the offensive side of the ball, where you can kind of just drop a rookie quarterback in there and they be successful, especially with the coaching staff that they have as support. You got Jim Caldwell, you have Josh McCown, you have Thomas Brown, the offensive coordinator, you have Frank Reich, a former quarterback. So I think the time is of the essence, and that's the only. Now, if they had traded up to 3 and still had DJ Moore, Anthony Richardson's odds would have been higher. But when they gave up what they gave up to get to 1, I think that kind of lowered the percentage or the statistics or the expectations or the favorings of an Anthony Richardson here at 1. I'm not ruling it out because I'm an Anthony Richardson fan, and I've been pounding the table for him since day 1. I just don't know if the Panthers feel like the risk that they can take the risk. Frank Reich hasn't been lucky with quarterbacks lately in Indy, and David Tepper hasn't been able to replace Cam Newton.
I know for a minute. Whew, man.
So when you take all of those factors into consideration, it's kind of like, okay, it would be nice to have that Lambo sitting in the garage. Man, might have to roll with Andy Dalton a couple of weeks, but it's nice to have that in the garage. But it's like, but you have a Bryce Young, Who's a winner? We have CJ
Yeah,
Stroud,
it is.
who's a winner. So it's kind of, I feel like when you look at all things considered, and a lot of times the NFL comes down to that. It comes down to the situation. It's not who the best player isn't always taken at the slot that you think that they're supposed to be taken at. It depends on the system, the need, the time, what it looks like in the rest of the division. It's so many factors that go into it. So many factors. And I just don't think that those factors support them taking Anthony Richardson at one. They could, because they have the red rifle. And if you look, Andy Dalton has entered the season as a backup basically since he left Cincinnati, right?
Yeah, you're right.
But he has not started less than 6 games in his entire career. So make of that what you will.
Sheena, last question before I let you go. You already mentioned it, the big move that the Panthers made with the Chicago Bears to jump up to 1. I know this might be a hard question to answer now, but if the Carolina Panthers take Bryce or CJ, I'm going to throw CJ into this as well. Let's say in the next 3 to 5 years, what do you think the impact of that trade is going to be? Because everybody's always evaluating trades where a team had to move up a couple of spots to take a quarterback, i.e. what San Francisco did a few years ago to get Trey Lance.
Well, honestly, with San Francisco, they just getting their lick back from when they finessed Chicago to take Mitch Trubisky at number 2 a couple of years ago. So I feel like that's
karma. My God, I would never understand that over Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun. Oh man,
finesse, because they were never going to take Mitch Trubisky at 2 anyway. But they were like, you know what, y'all want him? Are we going to see that happen again this year? I don't know. But I will say this. The impact of that on the Panthers side of things, you get your quarterback, like I said, in the NFC South, you set for a little while because that defense is young.
Yeah.
And they have the cap space to retain those guys on the defensive side of the ball after their rookie contract. So that's important also. A lot of people look at this team is stacked, but sometimes there's a small window because those contracts and the money things come up. The Panthers have the cap space to support keeping that team together for the next couple of years. So I think that somebody that doesn't necessarily get the kudos they need to is Samir, because he is working cap magic here in Carolina. He's getting the pieces that they need in place, and they're like, forget them draft picks. We need a quarterback. Everything else will work itself out. It becomes a more attractive place to free agents when you have a winning product on the field also. So those are, factors that people don't look at beyond looking at what picks were given up. You got to look at that cap situation in the next couple of years. And you can put together a super team, but if you fall a game short, that team is decimated the next year by cap issues or contracts coming due or contracts ending rather. So I think that as long as they make the right decision at quarterback, I think that I'm not going to say who won the trade because Chicago has money, picks, Justin Fields, DJ Moore, they have Chase Claypool's over there too. I mean, they're putting together a squad also. So shout out to Ryan Poles for what he's doing over there. But I do think that as long as his quarterback position is handled correctly, the Panthers are going to be a force to be reckoned with for the next 4 to 5 seasons.
There you have it. Sheena Quick, Panthers beat reporter from Fox Sports 1340 AM. Sheena, really quick, where can our listeners follow you at on social media? Because I know over the next, 12 days of now, we're going to have a lot of people just hoping and praying that Bryce Young falls to number 2. But like you said, if the Texans really want him, just make a phone call, give up some assets, and then everybody will be happy. Everybody will be happy.
Money and draft capital talk, okay? Money talks, draft picks talk. But you can follow me at Sheena_Marie3. I think that's my Twitter. Yeah. Sheena_Marie3 on Twitter and Instagram. I drop videos over there also. So just, come hang out with me. I drop some spaces from time to time to let the Panthers fans and even just fans of other teams come in and give their opinions. And we have a good time. Sometimes those spaces go 2 to 3 hours, just everybody just sharing their thoughts and opinions. So everybody's welcome.
Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers out there in the YouTube world on this Saturday episode, man. We've been pushing out some weekend shows for y'all, man. So,
I know, right?
Man, make sure you tell a friend to subscribe to the Locked On Texans podcast, where it is peaceful on this show. Not a lot of hoopla going on. unless Cody thinks about the Texans 06 in it again. We got to dive into the YouTube comments before we get out of here today. It's been a minute since we've done that. My man, Tom Out Houston on the Texans Rumors podcast.
Oh, Lord.
And that one was full of comments, man. We had about almost 2,000 views that day. My man, Tom Out Houston said, and this is in regards to Cody's comment, I was thinking the same thing. If D'Amico passed on CJ for Will Anderson, they made a mistake hiring him. Cody, I'm going to get it all of you.
Oh, man, somebody actually agreed with me. And somebody in the comments said that they was done with the show or something like that because I said something about D'Amico should be fired or something like that. I never said that he was fired, that he should be fired or anything like that. I said that it showcased that the Houston Texans made the wrong decision in their head coaching hire. That's all I'm saying. And John, I only said that because what did we just finish talking about in the first segment? It doesn't matter if you are a first-year head coach, 3-year general manager, whatever the case might be. Me and Sheena Quick, we talked about the talent gap, how special both CJ and Bryce can be, why the Carolina Panthers are still weighing their options on which quarterback to take with the number 1 overall pick. I don't see how you can consider all of that, and as a head coach, you still come up with the idea of saying, I want Will Anderson, and this is no disrespect to Will Anderson because I think he has the potential and the talent to have a phenomenal career. But I don't understand how with your first overall pick, you go after a guy, Will Anderson, on the defensive side of the ball. If we are being 100% honest, the Texans defense hasn't been the problem over the last 2 years. Yes, there has been moments where it has been god awful. I talk about it here on the show a lot about how bad they've been at stopping the run. However, when you go back and take a look at how many times the Houston Texans lost those 1-score losses, it wasn't due to the defense. It was due to the inabilities of the offense not being able to push the ball. And the majority of the offensive issues that we saw over the last couple of years came due to the inabilities of your quarterback. So you have an opportunity to get a top-tier quarterback, and you don't have not one choice, but 2 choices, and you're going to pass on it for Will Anderson. I don't get it, John, and that's where I said I'm surprised somebody, actually agreed with me because I was getting cooked in the comments on that day.
You did get killed. I cut the comments off from my phone. And they were like, dang.
Look, but that's the way I'm looking at this. But hey, at least somebody agreed with me. That was probably the only positive comment I got on my side that day.
My man Marco Meyer. I hope I'm saying that right, Marco. No disrespect to you or your family, but he did say, wow, CJ is not a quarterback like Trevor Lawrence. Jesus, bro. You guys are normally on point. Stroud has so many huge question marks. He may be good. He may not. So you know what, Marco? I will semi-apologize. I don't think that he's Trevor Lawrence. But what I think I was trying to paint that day was this is an opportunity for the Texans to go get their Trevor Lawrence for the type of team and how the past couple of seasons has been playing out for them. So I hope that makes more sense. Like, I don't think that when 10 years down the line, we're going to be looking at CJ and Trevor Lawrence the same. You guys have heard me on this show a lot of times. Like when people got worried, I was like, Trevor Lawrence will be okay. And shout out to Jay Stevens who came on the show and was like, you know what, CJ does need some people around him from the work. But that's exactly what I'm getting there. Like we look at the type of offseason Houston has had so far in free agency. Yeah, I absolutely believe that CJ could step in and help this team win some more games than what they've done the past 2 seasons and compete in a division that we talk about question marks. The Jags are not just the flat-out pick to win this division for me, right? They got question marks as well.
Mm-hmm.
So do Tennessee Titans. And we know that I look at the Colts in the same position, especially after free agency the Houston Texans just had, the same position as this franchise. And so, no, I don't think that he's Trevor Lawrence. I apologize for that if that is what I was putting out. I think that he can step into the role as the starting quarterback and help this franchise take a next step to a different level, which they have not had in the past couple of seasons, like Trevor Lawrence was able to do for the Jags this year. And I've said it on this time. I think that with the competency that's around this franchise right now, comparing that the first year under DeMeco Ryans, which we will see, and the coaching staff he's put together, a rookie quarterback can come in and step in and be much better than what Trevor Lawrence was the first year in the NFL under Urban Meyer and that coaching staff. So I do believe that. I don't think he's Trevor Lawrence, but I think he can have the same type of effect on this roster, how this team is set up with Dalton Schultz, even with a Robert Woods, and hopefully we get John Mechie back healthy on the field. So, yeah, I'll stand by that, but I do apologize if that was what you were thinking. No, I don't think he's Trevor Lawrence. I think he can have the same type of effect Trevor Lawrence did for the Jags this past year. Before we get out of here, my man Jacquees Onu, I hope I'm saying that name right as well. Anthony Richardson at 2. If Bryce is selected at 1, there's no way we should not take a swing on at potential greatness drafting AR. You continue with DeMeco is the type of head coach that can develop a kid as a person and as a player. Bobby Slowick's wide zone offense and play action bootleg and a heavy run element could maximize the immense potential of Anthony Richardson. And before the bombshell that I dropped on you guys earlier, Cody, that is why I believe if you do go Will Anderson, at 2, that number 12th overall pick, and one of those first-round picks for next year, you might as well call some teams up and say, hey, you know what? We got one for you at 12. We got an extra one for you next year. Can we get this spot and go get Anthony Richardson? Because he is a guy that if Bryce and Stroud are not going to be the guys, I think the third quarterback in line, especially because he is healthier than the Hendon Hooker, should be Anthony Richardson.
Which brings up another point that me and Sheena just finished talking about. Why not take the number 2 overall pick and want the next year first round pick and call up the Panthers, trade up one spot ahead, and go get Bryce Young? That way you have everybody. Like I said with Sheena, everybody would be happy at that point.
So my man John Crumpler, we text all the time, and we may call it every now and then, but we text all the time. And he says, you know what? I'm standing on this. If you feel like Bryce is on, because there's friction right now. And I think the friction is at number 2. At number 1, we wouldn't get these reports. Sitting at number 2 is where we get these reports from. If you feel like that Bryce Young can smooth all of this out and we can have a successful marriage and working relationship, then I understand it. And I've tweeted, I don't trade up for number 1. But I'm also not a general manager who's trying to save my ass. I'm also not a first-year head coach who's trying to build his own thing, his own greatness and glory. Do it. Just do it. And you live with the consequence. Whether you're right or wrong on it, at the very least, you swung for the fence. Sometimes you can bat 100. Sometimes you bat under 50. But you're trying to address a huge issue. And I do want to shout out the Carolina Panthers. Boy, did they play that smart. We'll trade up. And then if you really want them, you'll trade up. So we'll see how it all plays out. The NFL draft is in a couple of weeks. And maybe in 20-plus years, we'll give my boy getting his name called in the green room, right? If they still have a green room. 17 prospects are going now. And it's like, if I'm not getting my name called, I ain't going. I don't blame them kids. And I think it's much better to be at home with your family and loved ones than a lot of fake love. Thank you guys for checking out today's episode of the Locked On Texan podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Locked On Texan. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube under Locked On Texans. And give me a follow on Twitter at John_Hickman12 right there on the screen.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, that's Cody, CotyDavis_24. I might have to change my Twitter name to Uncle Cody M. Davis. I mean, I guess. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.